Hey, this is Brian Funk. I'm currently working on a recording with my three-piece rock band where guitar, bass, drums, and vocals. And I've run into some issues with the bass, and I want to show you some ways on how we can clean that up. Let me let you hear it for now. So there's just drums and bass at this point. And we can hear the bass is playing a very staccato part. Zoom in on this. And watch the space between the notes, and it gets even more so on this part. I'm going to solo the bass, and I want you to pay attention to the space between the notes. All that extra rumble, rattling. I'm going to go in on a very small section here and show you exactly what this sounds like. I'm going to create a new audio track, and I'm just going to grab this little part here, bring it down, and just duplicate it out a few times. And we'll loop this. And just listen to all this noise that's happening in between every note. And that's just one random spot. You can see it's taking up a bit of room here. Let's look at what it's doing on the EQ. All of this noise is happening in between every note, and that's going to get in the way. That's going to make things very muddy, especially all this low end. Now, the problem at the heart of this really is that my bass needs some work. Let me show you my bass. It's a beautiful bass. Univox Bass from the 70s sometime, and I got it off eBay a while ago. I love it, but it needs a little work, and it rattles a little bit in the frets, and it also has a little bit of buzz electronically. All of that is adding up to a lot of unwanted noise that's just going to get in the way of my mix. So let's look at a couple ways we can clean it up. Way number one is to just use a bass that's set up nice so you don't get these problems to begin with. The first method I thought I'd try was using Ableton's gate. The gate only allows audio over a certain volume to pass through it. Otherwise, it basically mutes it. So let's set the level on the gate and see what we get. I'm going to solo the track again. We're going to set the threshold so that only the actual notes come through. And we'll bypass it. You can hear all that rattle again. We've cut out some of that, so we might want to adjust like how long we want the gate to hold. I'm not super satisfied with this method because there are some things I do want to peek through here. I don't want to edit out all of the performance here. There's going to be some subtle things that he does, some little slides, some little movements, some little just pick scratches that I don't want to lose that the gate is going to cost me. So we're not going to use the gate for that. It can be useful for a lot of other things, but I'm just not feeling it here. The third method I thought I would try is volume automation. Now, I didn't want to automate the actual volume fader because then if I want to adjust it relatively, I lose all that automation. It's kind of a pain. Sometimes it's a lot easier to just use Ableton's utility device and use the gain control here. So if we go into our automation, I'll let you see what I drew in. Basically, I drew one shape right here, highlighted it, and hit duplicate a whole bunch of times. And this way my exact shape is applied to this whole entire section here. And I'll let you hear how this sounds. This is without it. Let's turn it on. Turn it off again. You can hear all the noise. Turn it on. And we cut it all out. We'll go back to that automation so you can see it. But here's the problem. Just duplicating that shape isn't going to work because the timing, although we record it to the grid, it's not always directly on the grid. Kind of works in the beginning here, but sometimes we happen to hit a little bit early, and that's okay by me. I want this human feel, but it's not consistent enough where I can just use automation. And here I changed a little something so I could get those extra notes. But I'm also just kind of not feeling this either because I'm missing certain times the attack, certain times I'm missing the release. It's just not quite what I want, and it's not the easy fix I was hoping for. So the final way I'm going to show you, it's the hardest way, but it's the way I'm ultimately going to decide to use, and that is to simply just delete out one by one everything I don't need. I'm going to go highlight what I don't need, and I can hit either the delete key to delete it, or I can hit the 0 key to deactivate it. Now, I'm going to suggest you hit the 0 key because when this is all said and done, you're going to want to create crossfades. You don't want to just have these tiny little cutoffs here. It's going to make a lot of clicking and popping. If I have clip deactivated like I do, I can just right click and create crossfades on clip edges, and it will do that for me. If, however, I don't, and I just hit delete, I don't get that option. I don't get create fades. So I have to do these one by one, which is a pain. I don't want to do that. So we're going to go back to our clip deactivate way, and I'm just going to do this all the way through all the parts in the song that I feel need it. It is a little bit tedious, no doubt. It's not the most fun production work, but sometimes the difference between great work and average work is the willingness to get in there and do the nitty-gritty details like this. So I'm going to keep that in mind as I do this as my own personal motivation, because it's not exactly the most fun thing to do here, but it's going to make this sound much better. And I'm going to let you hear the difference in just a second. I'll fast forward the video now. There's a couple nice advantages to doing it this way. For instance, you can see these hits are not quite lining up. It's a lot easier to just drag the one clip over like that and move it to where I need it to be. Another thing that we can do here is affect the timing, and this song has a lot of bounce to it, you know? That's the idea of the track, to have some nice bounce to it. And like, we'll have a part coming up in a second here. Like these long notes. Maybe I want to play around with that a little bit and not have that part bounce quite as much. I can adjust that by just changing the timing myself. And I get that little extra space so we can hear that extra snare hit that happens. If I take that back and let you hear it now, that bass part kind of rubs over the drum part. So I'm going to just allow us to have, I'm going to do this deactivate like I said, and I'm going to just give it a little extra bounce there. Let it come around again. And there's a little extra space there. So this is a nice advantage of doing it this way, although it is much more tedious. I've got the first part of the song done here. So I'm going to right click everything and click create crossfades on clip edges. That's why I'm doing deactivate. And if we look in here, we can see that we've got these nice little crossfades. And that goes into silence since this is silence. So I'm going to play back this verse part and let you hear what it sounds like. I'm going to switch between the original, which I have a copy of here, and this newly cleaned up version. A nice way to do A-Bing in live, if I go into key mapping, and that's this button here, or Command K, Control K on a PC, I'll click on what I want to map, which we'll call this button here, this activator, and I'll click on this activator. They both get mapped to the same key. I just pick the number 1 randomly. And all I need to make sure is that they're in opposite states, and now when I press 1, I'm turning one off and turning the other one on. So we can really quickly A-B things. You can do this with effects, you can do this with tracks, you can do this with anything really that you want to just compare the difference between. Let's listen to what we've got. And now let's hear what we had. And pay attention to the noise between the notes. I'll solo both of these too so we can hear the difference. Or we'll solo one at a time. Here's the original. Notice the noise. Here's the new clean one. Now, all of that garbage is now out of our mix. All of that headroom has now been brought back, and I now have space for all of my other sounds. This is really important to do. If you've got signal and noise inside your tracks that you don't want, clean it up. You could do it by either using the right bass, that's the most ideal. You could use the gate. You could use a utility to turn down the volume, or sometimes you might have to get down to business and go into each individual note and cut them one by one. In this case, I think that's the best way because I have control over where I cut the notes, where I cut the sounds. I can change the timing of the notes much easier. And I can even kind of give the bass a little more punch and movement by removing some stuff that maybe might take away from the bounce in this particular song. So I hope that helps. Thanks a lot for watching. If you like more stuff like this, check out my website, brianfunk.com. And you might want to listen to the Music Production Podcast, where I talk to all kinds of professionals in music making about all kinds of things, from philosophy to gear to creativity. We kind of go everywhere. It's a lot of fun, and I've learned so much talking to so many different people. That's the Music Production Podcast. That's at brianfunk.com/podcast. Thanks a lot and have a great day.